Good afternoon, everybody. This is Hunter Mozingo bringing you your daily market insight video for Thursday, September 23rd at about 4:15 p.m. It looks like 4:17 p.m. Eastern time to be exact. And today's video, we're going to talk about leading stocks. We're going to look at some great setups. And maybe the most important thing we're going to discuss is the importance of having a plan. So we're going to get into that here in just a moment. Before we do that, let's talk about what just happened. Broad rally led by the G5 and small caps there. You can see the Russell 2000, excuse me, led the way today, up over 1.8%, G5 up 1.63, the S&P up 1.2, the Q's up a little under 1%, Dow up about 1.5, mid caps also up about 1.5. The market state has been adjusted to rally attempt. We are rallying up into moving averages. We're going to look at that on the indices here in just a second, but we have some minor changes to the trend gauge on the right-hand side of your screen first. So no major changes in the sense that we didn't alter any of these big arrows here from Don's last video, but we did alter each one of these small arrows. So market leaders was pointing towards bearish, which rightfully so. There was a lot of very bad looking charts on Monday and even into Tuesday to some degree. However, leaders have shown some strength. They've acted better than the indices in a lot of ways. So that has been moved, pointing towards bullish. Also, we are really close / trying to get back above those moving averages. Some of the indices are above the 21. The Qs and the S&P are very close. We're going to look at that in a second, but we moved this pointing towards neutral here as some of these indices are making attempts or getting back above the 21. And lastly, medium was pointing towards bearish as well, as we were below the 50 on most of the indices. Now that has changed a little bit. This has been moved to neutral. And lastly, IWM was below the 200-day. We've now had 2 consecutive closes back above it. So the little yellow arrow that was right here has now been moved to neutral. So some minor changes. Maybe those will lead to further changes if we get some confirmation or continuation of strength from the markets, from the indices. So before I get into the good stuff here, let me reference Revere like I do in every video. This is me right here. If you have any questions about anything I say in the video, any stock I cover, any sector, anything, send me an email. I will happily answer your questions. If you're interested in what Revere does from an investment standpoint, what our strategy is, how we manage risk, etc., please send me an email. You can also email Dan, Tim, Merrill, Alex, or Don at revereasset.com as well. So let's get straight into it, everybody. We're going to look at the Qs to start, but I actually think I want to show you guys a little something else, and that is the dollar, which was down today. I apologize for this RS line all over the screen. That might be because I'm zoomed in. But we had a big move up in the dollar yesterday, and following the Fed and whatnot, today it moves down back below that 25 level. That has been a good thing for stocks, is when the dollar is down. Excuse me. Stocks have been, for the most part, happy about that, for lack of a better term. And then also today we get a really sharp move here in TLT. Not the greatest look for TLT here, which we've talked about it before. When TLT is down, that means rates are up. So typically if TLT is down like this, banks should be benefiting, and we'll look at that and find out whether they did or didn't here in just a second. But a very decisive big move. TLT doesn't often move in 2% increments. So that is something to pay attention to. Maybe tomorrow it gets back up into these moving averages, who knows, but keep your eye on TLT because this was a pretty big move, especially following the reaction yesterday. So let's go to the indices here. I'm going to show you what I'm talking about with these moving averages. And I also want to talk about the importance of a plan, because on Monday, I discussed how the highs and lows of this candle right here become very important. And so on Tuesday, and we're looking at the Qs here again, Tuesday, we closed basically in the upper half of the range relative to this candle, right? So we're trading kind of in the upper half of that. Wednesday, we get some nice action. We push through these highs. That is a really good thing. We didn't necessarily get rejected at the 50. We closed right on it. And then today, we kind of do the same thing we did here. We push through the highs and we sit kind of right on the 21 here on the Qs. So in regards to the plan, I mentioned these lows become important. That would have been an area where I would have been getting defensive. if that low would have been taken out. And then conversely, when these highs get taken out and then we push through the 50, those are confirmations of bullish behavior or good behavior, for lack of a better term, on the indices there. So we were above the 21 EMA up until the last little bit of the day. Pretty much ended up closing right on it to just like 50 cents below it. But still, nonetheless, very strong action from QQQ today, as well as the S&P and most of the other indices, getting back above moving averages right into them. So here is the S&P. You can see very similar scenario, pushing right up into that 21 EMA, right up on that 50. And we're going to talk, I want to focus on the same things again. So what I'm looking for on the S&P on the Qs is, do we push through today's high tomorrow? Or conversely, do we come back down below the 50 and 21? Do we take out today's low? So once again, I'm always monitoring how the indices and individual stocks are trading relative to their recent candles, right? So now I want to pay attention to the 440 level, which is the high of this day and the low of today. That becomes an important level. Additionally, I want to know if SPY can get through that 444, 445 area. And we're going to run through these last few indices here pretty quickly. IWM with a nice recovery. As I mentioned, two closes above the 200-day, got back above all the moving averages on IWM. Now, this one has been a laggard, so those moving averages are a lot flatter. But still, it is important to note that this is one of the, actually the only index that is above all of the moving averages here, the 21, the 50, and the 100-day and the 200-day, or the 8-day exponential. So MDY, not quite back above, pretty close, sitting right on them. Similar story here, just creeping back up, getting through these areas here. That's a declining 8-day exponential, that little pink line you see, and closing right on the 21 and the 50. And then DIA, although it was strong today, still the laggard below that kind of declining 50. You can see it's starting to roll over. Same story here. I've been talking about that 350 level on DIA. That's where I'm watching to the upside, is can we get through 350, which also coincides with the 50-day moving average. So let's talk about leading stocks as well as a buy and a sell from today. Bill, this is a position that we initiated today, and this stock obviously had a big gap up. They priced a secondary or an offering at 272. And so we were watching to see if it could respect that 272 level, bounce and get back above it. That's something we've seen be a good sign when leading stocks or stocks that have gapped up price a secondary and quickly get back above it. We saw that happen today, so we initiated a position and subsequently added to it as there was good confirmation and good strength throughout the day as well. Let's look at some more leading stocks today. AMBA, one of the biggest positions in our portfolio here at Revere. Great follow through. This one was actually slightly down, kind of a laggard early in the morning, and came on really strong throughout the day. Look at the volume here. This is very impressive on AMBA. NVIDIA, also a semiconductor stock, but very nice strength here. I mean, just an incredibly strong recovery after coming down and testing the 50 on NVIDIA. Semiconductor group as a whole acting very well. That's semi equipment, even some of the other chip manufacturers, semiconductors acting very well. And PWR also really didn't get too crazy volatile during the Monday morning gap down, but got back above the 8, acting well today with some volume. Really can't ask for a whole lot more than this, especially considering after the gap, it didn't give back much when the market was pretty brutal Monday morning there. Affirm, one of the new high flyers, up 12% today. Very strong. As you can tell, that's actually, I didn't realize it had finished as strong as it did. Got back up over this 126 high. That is incredibly impressive. The volume looking great today. Make sure this name is at the top of your radar because it is displaying a lot of leadership characteristics. Upstart, also probably the name that needs to be at the top of your radar. Look at the way this thing has respected the 8-day moving average here. Just beautiful strength. Volume staying elevated. You hardly see, you don't see very many red bars. I know right here you do after the gap up, but more above average volume to the upside than the downside. That's always a positive on a leading stock like this. A couple more here on the good side of things. Palantir having a nice day today. Really nice bounce off the 21 for Palantir. Although this 8% day is brutal, you need to know your stocks. This Palantir can be very volatile, just in the same way that you can have 5 to 10% up days, you can have 5 to 10% down days. So position sizing must be calculated accordingly. Snow is a similar type of stock, also acting well today, up 2%, getting back above that 8-day after testing the 21 here. Unity Software got a little bit of a pump, it seems, but a big gap up with volume, acting pretty well, getting above these highs. As you can see, kind of this 140 area was the area to watch, and it cleared it obviously at the open this morning. So really strong move from Unity. Just a few more here that I actually think are setting up pretty well. Square, I know Tim talked about Square in the video. Some nice volume. You see the volume today. It hasn't really had much upside volume, and maybe it's benefiting from the rise in interest rates, who knows, but price action is good enough for me. That is exactly what you'd want to see, getting back through all of those moving averages over the course of the last 2 days. Also not very extended on this name either. And Netflix made a attempt to break out, held the 21 kinda here during the gap down, but has gotten back above the 8-day and really went up and touched 600 today, and then ended up kind of chilling out for the rest of the day. I would keep a very close eye on this one through. You see these highs right here, 598, essentially 599. I'd watch for this name over 600. That's something you're going to want to pay attention to. And just a couple more here. Net, this one had a really nasty gap down in the morning. Don't necessarily know what caused it, but finished very strong. Essentially bounced off the 8. Exactly what you would expect a leading stock to do here. And 2 leading sectors for the day. I mentioned that banks might have benefited. Well, oil and gas did for sure, and XOP, that is your oil and gas exploration, certainly outperforming. The names in here that you want to look at are FANG, Diamondback Energy, MTDR, Matador, DVN, Devon Energy, and there's many more. Just go check out the ETF. And then KRE having a nice day, like I mentioned, with rates up, lots of banks starting to shape up a little bit, get some attention on that move. SIVB, Silicon Valley Bank, looking like the best of the bunch. So SIVB, in my opinion, acting the best out of these banks. And also GBTC and Ethereum shaping up a little bit. They were not looking too good. And I know this chart doesn't do it justice, but I believe both Bitcoin and Ethereum, the actual currency itself, are above their 21-day exponential moving average. This GBTC is not a direct reflection of Bitcoin. I know I've said that before, but there are variations. There's a discount to the net asset value that skew the charts. So always keep that in mind when you're looking at these charts. And I know I'm running a little long here, but I'm going to go through some of the laggards today because I think there's 2 of these names that are also ones you want to watch for a potential setup. So Datadog with a little bit of resistance at this 150 area. I'd keep an eye on this one if it just so happens to come back to the 8 or the 21. It may not. Today it was a laggard, but this stock kind of has a tendency to trade with a mind of its own. Doesn't always move with the indices like you would expect it to. So keep that in mind. ZI is another one that has a very similar approach. It was a laggard today, but just sitting right on this 8 days, sitting right at this pivot. This one just feels like it could break out, just taking its sweet time with getting to this 70 level and maybe clearing it. And a few more laggards today. Gold and silver, both weak today. After an initial little rally here, you see these 2 moves that there's probably some panic and fear induced buying in both gold and silver. I think SLV is the other we want to look at here. Yeah, similar situation. Maybe some panic buying, some fear induced buying there on those 2. DraftKings has absolutely gotten slaughtered after they announced that they were putting out an offer to buy a foreign sports gambling and betting company for quite a bit of money. The market has not seemed to like it. You can see the red bars. Not the greatest reaction here for DraftKings. Really, I mean, it's a pretty much about a 15% drawdown over the course of 2 or 3 days here, and a pretty sharp drawdown from the highs on DraftKings. Regeneron, not necessarily weak per se, slightly down. But I like the way this one is shaping up. I'm looking for a possible opportunity off the 50-day on this name if it can catch up. I'd also be happy to buy it over the 21 if I saw some nice volume come in and push this thing higher. Maybe through this, there's a 664 high on the left side of the screen. I'm zoomed in, so I can't see it. But that's an important level to watch on this name is the 660 area, 664. So really, this high right here, I'll set an alert while I'm on the video at 665, just to give me an idea if it gets through there. And last name here that was weak today, S. This is Sentinel-1, a recent IPO. It's a cybersecurity company, very weak today, very volatile relative to its peers, but certainly a laggard today, down 5.5%. And the last thing, we did trim a little bit of our hedge on the S&Ps today with that solid action up into those moving averages. If we get confirmation in the sense that we get consecutive closes above the 21 and the 50 on the S&P on the Qs, we would be looking to further reduce that hedge or get out of it entirely. So that is going to wrap it up. I know I was running a mile a minute through all this information, but I hope it was valuable and I hope you enjoyed it. As always, thank you for listening. I will see you guys on the podcast this weekend, and I'll see you on the video next Monday. Everybody have a great weekend. Thank you.